The air in the Dutch town of Veldhoven tasted of gunpowder and rain, a metallic tang that coated the throat and demanded a sharpened focus. Sergeant Major Silas Renwick did not have the luxury of clearing his throat as he moved through the shadows of the warehouses. His remaining eye, the one that saw the world with a fierce, narrow clarity, was fixed on the gap between the buildings. He was running a measured, tactical dash, his boots unnaturally loud on the cobblestones despite the torrential downpour. Behind him, the shouts of German soldiers were confused, fractured by the intermittent crackle of rifle fire. They were reacting exactly as he had planned, with panic, disorganization, and an overwhelming noise designed to mask his true position. Silas skidded around a corner, the heavy wool of his uniform soaking through instantly, his leather eye patch feeling like a burning weight against his temple. It was 03:17 hours, and dawn was still 2 agonizing hours away. In those 2 hours, he had to convince an entire German garrison that they were surrounded and facing certain annihilation by a force 10 times the size of himself. A blinding flash erupted 15 yards to his left, followed by the deafening percussion of a stick grenade detonating in a trash pile. Fragments peppered the nearby stucco wall, but the psychological shrapnel had already hit its mark. An SS patrol, alerted by the blast, instinctively ducked and opened fire on an empty corner. Silas, already 3 streets away, smiled, a grim professional movement of the mouth. The grenade was merely the opening statement in a symphony of chaos he intended to conduct. Could a single man truly convince an army that they were already defeated before the first real shot was even fired? Silas Renwick, 32 years old, was not built for quiet diplomacy. He was built for breaking things. A scout and infiltrator trained by the newly formed American Office of Strategic Services, OSS, his specialty was operating entirely outside conventional warfare parameters. He was lean, wire-strong, and possessed the unnerving calm of someone who had seen the worst of humanity and found a purpose in fighting it. His missing eye was not a weakness, but a testament to his survival. In 1940, on the blood-soaked beaches of Dunkirk, a shell fragment from a Luftwaffe Stuka dive bomber had ripped across the right side of his face. He should have died, but instead, he emerged from months of surgery, hardened, and infinitely more focused on the threats he could perceive with his remaining senses. The eye patch became his signature, a black flag proclaiming a past tragedy and a fierce determination for the future. Silas moved through Veldhoven with the grace of a predator, his mind a map of the town's narrow, gabled streets and meticulously maintained canals. Before the occupation, Veldhoven had been a place of quiet desperation, a microcosm of occupied Europe where fear was the prevailing currency. For 4 long years, life had been reduced to the grim routine of survival under the iron fist of the Third Reich. The town was beautiful in a tragic way, dominated by the towering silhouette of the St. Martinus church spire. But now, that beauty was marred by camouflage netting, sandbag emplacements, and the echoing cadence of German boots. Beneath the surface of compliance, however, a flickering ember of resistance survived, led by Alara Jansen. Alara, 28, was the daughter of the town physician and the linchpin of the local resistance cell. Officially, she worked as a nurse in the makeshift German infirmary, a role that granted her access to critical gossip and troop movements. She saw the fear in the German soldiers' eyes, the realization that the tide of war was turning, and she used that knowledge like a surgical tool. When she met Silas in the damp, chilling slaughterhouse on the edge of town, she didn't see a savior. She saw a partner in a suicide mission. "They know something is coming," she had whispered to him, her face pale among the hanging carcasses. "Richter is paranoid. He has moved his command center to the church spire." Richter, Major Klaus Richter, an SS Hauptsturmführer of chilling precision and academic cruelty, was the man Silas had to break. Richter believed in the absolute purity of his mission and the strategic importance of the Veldhoven Bridge, the last unbroken link in a critical supply chain. As Silas slipped back into the night, the weight of his responsibility felt like a physical burden. If he failed, would there be anyone left to remember the ghost who tried to save Veldhoven? The mission, as briefed to Silas 3 days earlier, was suicide by technicality. Operation Fury required the Veldhoven Bridge to remain intact for 48 hours, to allow Allied armored units to bypass a heavily fortified choke point. Aerial reconnaissance confirmed that Richter had placed demolition charges under the bridge's main supports. A full-scale assault was impossible. It would be too loud, too slow, and would guarantee the bridge's destruction. The only viable option was disruption. A diversion so convincing that Richter would pull his men off the bridge to fight a ghost army, buying the Allied sappers time to cut the wires. Silas had been given a radio, 3 bags of high explosives, a suppressed Sten gun, and his wits. "You need to make one man sound like a regiment," his commanding officer, Colonel Miles, had told him. "You need to turn Veldhoven into absolute hell for those Germans." Silas spent the hours after his meeting with Ilara meticulously placing his limited explosives, not to destroy infrastructure, but to destroy German coherence. He focused on strategic sound points. First, the main electrical relay station on the outskirts, where he affixed a satchel charge with a 60-minute delay fuse. Next, he planted fragmentation mines disguised with mud on the 2 main roads out of town, aiming to simulate the closing of exits. Finally, he targeted the old orphanage, now a German ammunition dump. He couldn't blow the whole building, or he'd level half the town, but he could create a very convincing display of an assault. He placed 2 separate charges, one for maximum noise and flash, and another containing a thermite incendiary mixture to create intense fire and smoke. At 02:59, the electrical relay charge detonated, plunging Veldhoven into a profound, wet darkness. The reaction was immediate. Shouts erupted from the barracks, and Richter's men, previously complacent, scrambled in the dark. Then, the first charge at the orphanage went off, a cracked boom that shook the glass in every window. "West side, assault on the ammo dump," the German shouts echoed, exactly as Silas had hoped. 2 armored scout cars in the square roared to life, their engines sputtering in the cold air as they rolled toward the blast site. Silas, positioned in a derelict bakery, pulled the pin on a smoke grenade and tossed it into the center of the square. As the thick smoke blossomed, he fired 3 single shots from his Sten gun at the exhaust pipes of the closest scout car. The metallic ping 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 sounded like precise sniper fire, and the driver, terrified, slammed on the brakes. In the confusion of smoke and darkness, the second scout car veered away, believing the first had been hit by anti-tank fire. The Germans were now screaming conflicting orders, unable to see through the smoke and fear. But as the chaos grew, could Silas maintain the illusion long enough to keep the SS from realizing they were fighting a shadow? The German military doctrine was built on order and discipline, but Silas Renwick was systematically dismantling both. By 03:15, the second charge at the orphanage ignited, sending a pillar of brilliant orange and white fire into the sky. The sight, coupled with the previous explosions, convinced the Germans that a coordinated, multi-pronged attack was underway. Silas then reached for his radio transmitter and began playing a pre-recorded loop of heavy rapid-fire Sten gun bursts, a 30-second burst of artificial fire designed to sound like a prolonged engagement between large units. To the German listening posts, this brief burst of radio chatter, combined with the visible fires, suggested an Allied company-sized force was already in the streets. Silas moved like a ghost, running toward the chaos and then away from it, always relocating before the Germans could pinpoint his muzzle flash. He used his remaining fragmentation charges to blow a fuel dump and a water pump station, adding strategic terror to the list of Richter's problems. Richter, watching from the church spire, was faced with an impossible tactical dilemma. Ammunition dump under attack, communications cut, roads blocked, and snipers seemingly everywhere. Silas's final act of rebellion against the odds was his most daring. He retreated to the town hall square, which was mostly deserted as the SS rushed west toward the fires. He found the town hall's antiquated but powerful public address system and spent 5 frantic minutes hot-wiring it to a microphone. Adjusting the volume until the feedback hum was painfully loud, he took a deep breath. In perfect, fluent German, a skill he had honed in pre-war intelligence work, he delivered his final, terrifying performance. "Attention! This is General Staff!" His voice boomed through the deserted square, amplified 100 times. "You are surrounded by the 101st Airborne and reinforced armored units. Your supply lines are cut. Your commanders have abandoned you." Every German soldier in Veldhoven heard it. Silas claimed that Major Richter had been captured and was being interrogated, a lie that hit the soldiers' morale like a physical blow. Drop your weapons immediately. You have 5 minutes to surrender or be destroyed." He repeated the message twice, the authority in his voice unmistakable before cutting the microphone. The effect was devastating. Corporal Heinrich Voss, the Baker-turned-logistics commander now in charge of the bridge, looked at the fires, heard the general staff, and made the only choice he felt was left. He and his men abandoned their posts and fled into the fields. Silas reached the bridge in a haze of exhaustion, finding it abandoned, the detonators lying forgotten on the cobblestones. He had won the psychological battle, but could he survive the physical confrontation that was now inevitable? Major Richter was no fool. From his position in the spire, he had recognized the deception. A surrender ultimatum over a public address system was not the work of an invading army, but the desperate gambit of a lone infiltrator. "It's a trick. It's a single man," Richter roared into his field radio, grabbing his personal guard of 10 SS men for a final dash to the bridge. Silas, exposed on the bridge approach, heard the sudden, organized rush of boots and knew the reckoning had arrived. He dived into a small guard shack for cover as Richter's men advanced, firing bursts into the darkness. Silas reached into his pack for his last explosive, a large flat block of composition C4. He molded it around a heavy steel oil drum and set a 2-second fuse. As Richter's men closed in, Silas gave the drum a mighty shove, rolling it directly into their path. The resulting explosion wasn't massive, but the oil drum acted as shrapnel, tearing through the air and dropping 2 SS men instantly. In the confusion, Silas erupted from the shack, Sten gun raised, charging directly into the German line. He fought with the desperate, cold efficiency of a man who had accepted his death hours ago, firing, moving, and reloading in the shadows. He dropped 3 more men before a bullet slammed into his left shoulder. The pain was sickening, momentarily blinding him as he crashed against the bridge railing. Richter emerged from the smoke, MP40 raised, eyes burning with triumphant hatred. "End of the line, spy," Richter yelled. But in that fraction of a second, Silas moved, his last 3 rounds smashing into the tactical flashlight mounted beneath Richter's submachine gun. The glass shattered, plunging the immediate area into darkness and giving Silas the opening he needed. Despite the agony in his shoulder, Silas launched himself at Richter. They collided violently, the MP40 flying across the pavement as they tumbled onto the wet stones in a brutal hand-to-hand struggle. Richter was trained, but Silas was driven by a primal, focused rage. He used his teeth, his knees, and the iron-hard grip of his uninjured hand, eventually landing a crippling blow to Richter's throat and an elbow to his temple. Richter went limp. Silas stood over him, breathing heavily as the rain washed the blood and grit from his face. The 3 remaining SS men, seeing their leader fallen and believing Silas was merely the vanguard of the Ghost 101st Airborne, finally lost their will and surrendered, their hands raised high in the pre-dawn gloom. Silas Renwick had captured the town. As the Allied armored column finally rolled into Veldhoven 2 hours later, what would they find in the wake of one man's war? The legacy of Veldhoven was not just the survival of a bridge, it was the chilling realization of how brittle the facade of power truly is. When the sappers arrived, they found a secured bridge and a German garrison neutralized by the sheer force of psychological warfare carried out by a single man. Silas Renwick was found slumped against a brick wall near the bridge, his good eye closed, his breath coming in ragged, painful gasps. Ilara Jansen knelt beside him, checking his wounds. "Silas, it is over," she whispered. "We heard the general's voice. They were running like rabbits." Silas managed a weak smile. "No general, Ilara, just noise and timing." The Germans later reported the engagement as a surprise attack by a highly trained and numerous group of Allied infiltrators, unable to admit they had been defeated by one man with a patch over his eye and a brilliant, devious mind. Colonel Miles, surveying the burnt trucks, the cut wires, and the utter bewilderment of the captured Major Richter, could only shake his head. Silas never spoke of Veldhoven in detail again, simply referring to it as a very bad night with a very good microphone. He ran through the streets of Veldhoven not as a soldier, but as the ghost of the coming Allied victory, leaving behind a testament to the power of a singular, unbreakable will. His victory remains one of the most astonishing examples of asymmetric warfare in history. If you have ever felt the weight of the world on your shoulders and found the courage to fight a battle everyone else thought was impossible, then share your thoughts in the comments below. Do you believe psychological warfare is the ultimate weapon? Or was it Silas's sheer grit that won the night? Let us know what you think of the Ghost of Veldhoven.